My name is Eric Bancroft, and I have a privilege to be one of the pastors here at Grace Church. About once a month at Grace Church, we do what we refer to as a story of grace. It usually is the biography of somebody who is sharing how God broke into their rebellious life and saved them and just did a great work in changing them unto Christ. But this morning's a little different. This morning, our story of grace is a story of a ministry of Grace Church. For those of you that are new to Grace Church is just 4 years old. We actually began at a different location about a half a mile from here, meeting on Sunday nights, every Sunday night at 5 p.m. We did so up until the time of COVID. It took about 5 months off because of not being able to assemble, and then resumed meeting here at this church, at that time known as Miami Shores Baptist Church, meeting in a side chapel, and then overgrew that and came into this, and then in time our two churches merged together, Miami Shores Baptist Church merging into Grace Church. But the very beginning of our ministry, you have to understand, we had 15 people meeting in a small little gathering place together, and the only children we have were the Perez's children. And the only teenagers that we had were the Bancroft boys. But nevertheless, we wanted to be able to have a youth ministry. And my wife, Danelle Bancroft, not uncommon for other supportive, loving wives to church planting husbands, was our children's ministry director of sorts. She helped set things up and get things ready and cleaned up, and that involved sometimes showing up early and cleaning up the roaches and making sure that things were wiped down and ready. And Kristen helped with figuring out some curriculum things. And we also just did a number of things in which Danelle wonderfully did for a number of years that we're still to this day reaping the fruit of. But we finally grew to the size that we thought, okay, God keeps bringing children to our assembly. We need to give some more effort and some more energy to our children's ministry. After a conversation with elders and this young lady to my right, your left's willingness, Karina Navarro, we have our very first paid children's ministry director of Grace Church. And Karina has been serving in that capacity for a little bit of time. We're very thankful for her in that regards. I thought it'd be helpful on behalf of the elders for you to hear about the children's ministry of Grace Church, because I think sometimes it's unknown to many or not as appreciated as I think it could be and should be, especially to those as families of kids here. So Karina, let me first of all just say on behalf of Grace Church families, thank you very much for picking up the mantle of leadership. From the baton pass of the days of Danelle Bancroft to now you. And so I want to thank you for that. Just a couple of quick questions that we get to know the Children's Ministry of Grace Church. First of all, just tell us about the Children's Ministry of Grace Church.
Okay, so at Grace Church, we call the children's ministry Grace Kids, and we serve children ranges 0 to 8 years of age. And then starting next month on March 3rd, we will be launching Grace Youth, and that is for the middle and high schoolers. But at Grace Kids, we divide the kids into 3 rooms. So we have the nursery, which is 0 to 2-year-olds, preschoolers 3 to 4, and then the bigger kids 5 to 8 years old. In Grace Kids, we want to make the whole counsel of Scripture known. And by doing so, we want to use a biblical and gospel-rich curriculum. The curriculum that we are using is Gospel Project, and it does just that. It helps to show the kids how the whole Bible points to Jesus and the gospel. So in case you're wondering what a Sunday morning looks like for your kiddos, we start check-in at 10:15 with the hopes of you guys getting in on time. You can also
hint.
Speed up the process of your check-in by using the church app. You can check in the kids ahead of time through there. If you don't know what I'm talking about, find me, and I would love to show you after service. But when the kids arrive, they are greeted by their volunteers. Each room has 2 volunteers at all times, and they are given an activity sheet that looks like this, which prepares their little hearts and minds for the story that they'll be going over that morning. These activity sheets are great, by the way. If your kid does not have one when they're walking out, make sure you ask if they can have one, because they have the summary of what they went over along with family discussion questions to further instill the truths that they learned that morning, along with their memory verse and their big picture question that they're going over throughout the unit that they're in. So after their activity sheet, around 11, they start their lesson. And then after lesson, they have prayer, a time of worship, some more prayer, and then time for crafts and playtime. But throughout the whole morning, the volunteers are going over the truths that they learned, engaging them with questions, as well as helping them to memorize their memory verse and big picture question.
Karina, one of the things I think makes Grace Church unique, not only is just the sense that you're trying to make sure in our children's ministry that they're not just being cared for, but they're being taught the scriptures, with the gospel being at the center of all they're being taught. But I think also what makes Grace Church unique with its children's ministry is that we don't continue children's ministry indefinitely in age and years that it's being made available during the service. A lot of times it's expected churches to kind of provide that child care ministry throughout the entire age, sometimes even through their teenage years, while the adults, if you will, are in the church service. And Grace Church has opted to have the children's ministry go from birth up to age 8, but then after age 8 to be present here with us. Talk to us about some of the resources for parents who have kids thinking, what do I do with my kid in church? They don't understand everything going on. What should they know about in that regards?
Okay, so this morning I have 2 resources to show you, one for the children and one for the adults. So I will start with the children. Here I have the children's bulletin. It's for the kiddos that are joining us in the sermon. It's a great resource because it has engaging questions for the kids to help them follow along throughout the entire worship service. And then second, I have this article. It's titled "The Family Together in God's Presence." It was written by John Piper and his wife, Noelle. And they express in this article how impactful it is to have the whole family together on Sunday worship service. They also give some advice on what would that look like and how to do it. Both of these are located in the Welcome Center. For the article, I encourage you to grab one, read it, share it with a friend. You don't have to have kids to read it. And then if you have kids today and you don't have a bulletin, please, during the fellowship time, go ahead to the Welcome Center and grab some.
One of the things, Karina, that I think sometimes could be neglected to be referenced or maybe even prioritized with churches is the safety of children when they come to church. So we're obviously prioritizing the teaching of children, the significance of the gospel made clear to them, engaging them even in the service. But talk to us a little bit about the safety of children at Grace Church. Why is that such a priority?
It is a priority. Bottom line is we cannot share the gospel and children cannot receive the gospel if they're in an unsafe environment. Our first priority here is child safety, which, like Eric said, could kind of be surprising because you automatically assume our first priority is tell the kids about Jesus, but it is safety first, and then comes the gospel. But I want to share a quote with you. It's from a book titled On Guard by Deepak Reju. It really has impacted me and my work here at Grace. So he says, and I quote, "We must remember our high calling as parents, pastors, and children's ministry workers, the God-given charge to love, protect, and shepherd children under our care." For me, this quote speaks to what we believe in as well as what we are doing here at Grace. And as disciples of Christ, it's our duty and our responsibility to steward the vulnerable that are placed under our care.
One of the I think sobering statistics that comes out of Children's Advocacy Center, Child Protect, is the following. 3.6 million cases of child abuse are reported every year in the United States. They report that 1 out of 3 girls and 1 out of 5 boys will be sexually abused before they reach age 18. For every incident of child abuse or neglect that's reported, an estimated 2 incidents goes unreported. Not only that, but if 20% of men and 33% of women have been sexually abused before their 18th birthday, then any organization of 5 people or more is likely to have an abuse survivor among them. Can you make us aware of what Grace Church is doing in our children's ministry in light of these sobering, shocking, sad statistics?
Thank you for sharing those. Never gets easy to hear those. We're sharing those statistics not to instill fear in you guys, but just to make you aware that anywhere children are, there's opportunities for abuse, and that includes churches. Evil does not make exceptions. So one of the things that we have been doing is working with the Evangelical Council of Abuse Prevention. It stands for ECAP for short, or ECAP for short. Did I say that right? I don't know. So it is a Christian organization that exists to help provide ministries, churches, schools, resources, accreditation, along with awareness on how to protect the vulnerable that are in our care. So we've been working diligently at building what is called our Child Protection Policy. This is a set of guidelines that describes how we at Grace Church are intending to protect and care for the children that are placed under our care. And they have set standards that we are striving to meet. And these standards that they have drafted have been, it was a committee of experts that work in risk management, along with professionals that work with children and serve children. So they have come along, set these standards, and we are working towards meeting those standards so that we can one day be ECAP accredited. So our leaders, church members, and especially children ministry volunteers need to be aware that we are on the front line of protecting children from abuse and neglect. So with the implementation of these standards set by ECAP, some of which we already have in place, such as when you check in your kids, we have the security tag system, we have the 2-person rule, we also have screening and verification protocols for all of our staff and any volunteers that are working directly with children. That also includes training. But these all provide God-honoring and a glorifying environment for the kids not only hear the gospel, but to receive it. And it also makes it a very unsafe environment for any predators seeking to come in through our doors and do evil.
What I want you guys to just hear by summary fashion is, as ministry leaders, speaking to you as parents, we take your children very seriously. Not only that, we want to teach them sound, biblical, godly, God-honoring scripture, but also their safety. And churches and other nonprofit organizations have been tragically a place that have naively at best, unknowingly at worst, provided safe harbor to predators due to lax policies and procedures that they allow to not be addressed. And as a result of that, it comes tragically at the expense of many lives. And there's no doubt in a room this size, I'm not speaking abstractly, I'm speaking realistically. As you sit here and hear the sound of my voice, there are some of you here who are yourself victims of abuse. And as your pastor, on behalf of Ronald and Chris, we take that very seriously, and we want to care for you, provide counsel for you. We also want to provide an environment where your children are protected. And so we take that very, very seriously. And under Karina's leadership, not only by providing a safe environment, but also a biblically solid environment, we can then third, make sure we're partnering well with you as parents. God entrusted the children to you to raise them in the fear and instruction of the Lord. And we want to come alongside you, not only resourcing you, but also helping serve you in different ways we can do that. From the children to the teenagers that we're excited to start a student ministry coming up soon, we want to do that.